The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Wood, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA. No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stuff. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler. Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson. After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career. Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. This is episode 153, and it is the Super Bowl episode. We got a great show. First off, I want to pitch the deal. If you guys missed it on the first podcast, it's an awesome deal. It's from our friends over at Tom's Urban, downtown LA. They are having a watch party for the Super Bowl this Sunday. It's a can't-miss package. It's going to be $80 when you mention Downtown Rams podcast during your reservation, and it's pretty much all you can eat, all you can drink. We're going to tell you more a little bit later in the show, but it's an amazing show, and I know that sounds cocky, but anytime you get, a Hall of Fame player, the caliber of Anthony Munoz on your podcast, that's huge, as well as Rams Super Bowl 36 starting cornerback Dexter McCleon. He's coming on to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl matchup between the Rams and the Patriots, since he actually was in the last time they played in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great show. Joe Curley and I are going to break down this matchup in depth, and we're really looking forward to it. So hope you guys enjoy, and be sure to review and subscribe on iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever. Just be sure to let us know your thoughts on every show, because we really appreciate that. All right, so Joe, a lot to talk about. What are your overall thoughts, coming into this game?
Yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to it, because I think I think it's a fairly easy bet that it's going to be a really entertaining game. I think it's two really well-balanced teams that have the opportunity to put forth yet another kind of unforgettable Super Bowl. Patriots seem to do it almost every time they play in a Super Bowl. The game's going to come down to one score, and it's going to be entertaining to the end. And I think it's going to be pretty agonizing for Rams fans, simply because I think it's to play follow your team in the first Super Bowl in over a decade, can get pretty frantic. So I'm with you guys this weekend. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster, and let's get this thing started. I think it's a coin flip game, and somebody's just going to make a hero of themselves this week. I think it's any guess who it's going to be. Let's try to figure out who it'll be.
Yeah, I completely agree. The first off, how do you? I mean, this is going to be a total interview, but Joe, we'll start with you. How do you expect the Rams to attack the Patriots defense?
I think the thing that pops out to me about that matchup is Todd Gurley. I think if Todd Gurley is himself, the Rams are going to have a chance to win this game because I think the Patriots don't have a linebacker, who can stay with him in the pass game. Certainly that becomes a little bit of a question mark simply because we saw Todd's coming off his worst game of his 4-year career professionally. And so, as long as Todd has his head in the game and, isn't what we saw a couple weeks ago, he should have an absolutely huge game in the pass game. Just look at what Damian Williams did in the AFC Championship game, just crushing the Patriots in the second half. As they got back to the game, probably should have won it. And so, I think that's a huge matchup advantage. And I think besides that, I think you're going to see a lot of what the Rams, do on a regular basis, kind of outside zone, play action, and Woods and Cooks and Gurley and some CJ in short yardage and go from there.
I definitely think that's a good way to attack the Patriots. I mean, I think one of the biggest things here is that they've received, at least for me, I've noticed that they've received some big-time play out of Stephon Gilmore, a guy that I felt like struggled when he first signed with the Patriots. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like he was worth the money, but he's really come into his own. I think, with Jonathan Jones as the slot corner, I think, that's an interesting matchup. That intrigues me. Guys like Lawrence Guy, that I think have been underrated this season. John Simon, like different role players that when you're, obviously the Patriots, they have their quote unquote starting lineup, but a lot of these different guys get in, just from watching the film. I mean, you talk about a Landon Roberts and they lose a guy that I think would be huge in this game. And quite honestly, Rams fans are lucky, that the Patriots don't have, and that's Jaquan Bentley, out of Purdue. I mean, I think he is an absolute stud. I think the Patriots are going to have a superstar in him for the long run, but he's not in this game.
Yeah, he hasn't been. Yeah, it's been months since he's played, so it doesn't really kind of affect the matchups. But yeah, certainly he's their most talented. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the lack of talent at linebacker. You have a lot of guys that go forward but don't go back. You have a lot of guys who rush but don't pass. Don't get back in coverage. And Bentley, certainly was their most talented guy, but they haven't had him since basically September. Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, Joe, I did my little tape review, and I watched just about every Patriots game.
Look at you.
Yeah. I think they're very impressive because, this defense is all about having depth. I mean, John Simon is one of those sought-after guys when he gets cut, I believe, from the Colts. And, there were a bunch of teams looking after him. Patriots grab him. Kyle Van Noy, BYU guy that I liked in the draft. The Lions draft him. They draft him relatively early, and he never really amounts to anything in Detroit. Here he is with New England carving out a role. Danny Shelton, somebody that, really caught fire in the combine. And then, of course, the Browns draft him, and he doesn't really do anything there. I thought he was all right, but, he wasn't blowing the doors off or anything like people expected. Patriots trade for him. And, I do think you have to give them credit for trading for Josh Gordon. I know that didn't end up the way they expected, but this is the key. This is why this team's here. This is why the Rams are here. You can't just sit and stay pat all the time. You have to adapt to what's going on. The Patriots go out and they get Danny Shelton. They go out and they get Josh Gordon. The Rams, they go out and get Dante Fowler. We're like the most important thing, I think, in this league, you only have 16 games to do it. You have to get in the playoffs, and then the rest, we'll see from there. But in order to get there, sometimes you have to, look in the mirror and just be like, you know what? Our team isn't a Super Bowl contender right now, but here is a piece that, with help could kind of guide us there. Now, the Rams were a Super Bowl contender before they traded for Dante Fowler, but you have to make the argument that, Dante Fowler, without him, they're not in the Super Bowl. I think he came up huge, obviously, in the Saints game. He came up, I felt like he was pretty big in the playoffs so far. And Ndamukong Suh, which, funny enough, was considered a luxury move. It was considered they don't need him, but why not? And he ends up being an integral part of this defense. He ends up being a starter where you can't really imagine much without him, especially in the postseason, And I think that's really the key with these two teams is it's a tale of the fact, look, we have all this talent, but we're not afraid to go out and make the move. And, obviously the Patriots aren't afraid to let a guy like Brandon Cooks go. They trade him to the Rams. And, this is a team that they traded Brandon Cooks right to the Rams, who played in their Super Bowl last year, who,
Briefly.
Arguably he getting concussed, that might have cost them, later on. I mean,
Sure.
I think he would have, he could have been huge in, winning that football game. And of course they lose their first round pick, friend of the podcast, Isaiah Wynn. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play next year. But the point is, both teams, they're here because they both went out and they did, certain things other teams were too afraid to do. And really what impresses me the most about the Patriots is the depth. I mean, it's not Tom Brady. We talked about this, throughout the regular season. I mean, you were saying he's having a good year, but his standards, though, he'd be considered, mediocre? So, really, I just think depth is such key. And while the Rams have guys, Joe, I know people will say, well, they have Okoronkwo, they have Justin Law, they drafted those guys. The Patriots have legit depth where, all these guys can play. It's not they're, scratched or anything. All these guys, Micah Kaiser plays, but he's a special teamer. Patriots have a bunch of guys they just rotate in and out. Yeah, it's impressive.
The way the Patriots manage the cap and they manage the roster, obviously they have Tom Brady, but the Rams have upper echelon elite talent at running back, receiver, defensive tackle. They've gone out, and obviously cornerback. And so the way these rosters are constructed, because Jared Goff is still on his rookie deal, they were able to, get elite talent and pay it, across the roster. Whereas the Patriots have that great depth, but they don't have as many, kind of high talent guys. Even I guess if you were going to rank the Patriots 2 through 10, talent wise, you'd have Gronkowski, a shoe-in Hall of Famer, maybe the greatest tight end of all time. But you're talking, this is probably his last football game. He's not what he once was. Devin McCourty, you could almost say the same thing. One of the better safeties of his era. He's already hinted that he could retire after this game. You're talking about a lot of the high-end guys, for the would be kind of, the Patriots' best guys besides Brady would be lesser guys in the Rams roster. If you were going to take this 106 man, for the 52s for both teams and rank them 1 to 106, maybe you have Brady 1, but then after that you got a lot of Rams for the the next 10 to 12 spots. So I think that's the way this thing shakes out. Is I think the Rams have the better roster. The Rams have more talent up and down the team, but certainly the Patriots have experience. They've been here before. They know how to deal with it, and that's a gulf that probably erases the talent gulf. So that's why I think this thing's so tight.
No, I agree. And there are things here that makes this matchup is not like your everyday matchup. If the Rams and Kansas City Chiefs went at it, it'd be the battle of star power. And even even though the fact that the Chiefs don't have the defense, they still have guys that jump off the page like Chris Jones, D Ford, Justin Houston. To me, it's like the Patriots are so obviously they're so fundamentally sound. They're so well coached, and obviously you're talking about Bill Belichick, a guy that knows how to manage the game. Came back from it was 28-3, I believe, against the Falcons. I mean, that's just unreal, especially when you've seen the flip side of that. Peyton Manning and the Broncos, that offense that couldn't be beaten until they were beaten 43-16 in the Super Bowl. So you've seen the flip side of how you get down early on and it's over. but you've also seen, the Patriots show that really they can overcome any deficit. And, Joe, before we get on to how the Rams will attack the Patriots offense, I got to say their defense, everything I'm saying with their depth, I think the Rams really have to go hurry up, and I think they have to do a lot of no huddle. The Rams operate well in no huddle situations. The question with me is, why did they stop doing it when they continue? They did against the Saints, and the Saints really had a hard time stopping them. They did against Cowboys. The Rams are a scary no huddle team. They really operate well, obviously in the no huddle game, and I think you got to stop the Patriots from being able to substitute, and that's how I think you can get, quote unquote, those cheap, yards, those cheap, big plays, just on the fact that you have the same guys on the field. They can't, swap out their guys, and you're just kind of attacking them, and it's really, Joe, I mean, you've watched football for a long time. I mean, it's really hard when you have a team that's constantly no huddle, no huddle, no huddle, to make a substitution without,
Well, one reason you would do that in this game, if you're the Rams, it's not a home game, but it's not a road game. It's, you're going to be in a position to go quick game and snap the ball before the play clock gets under 15, so that, Goff is able to communicate with McVay basically the entire time. They're in the pre-snap process. So I think you go quick for that. The only downside of that is you don't want to wear out the offensive line. You don't want to go too much of that, because this is the type of game where, by the time you get to the fourth quarter, it's been 4 hours, 4.5 hours. There's long halftime. There's long pregame. So, there's kind of a yin and a yang, opposing forces where, the Rams are going to want to play quick offensively. They're going to want to have McVay and Goff's ear throughout the pre-snap process as much as possible. So they're going to want to go fast. But the downside of that is you do have an opportunity to kind of wear out, those offensive linemen. And, Whitworth has played really well the last month, since the back-to-back losses. I'm concerned about maybe Sullivan and Blythe. That's the one weakness, I think, for this Rams offense in this game. You can't have breakdowns, in the middle of the offensive line. You can't have Trey Flowers, getting pressure on Goff, because that's when everything can kind of go haywire and you can speed up the young quarterback. So, I think that's kind of what McVay is, some of what McVay is going through as they're putting in this game plan.
Oh, of course. I mean, I think everyone would agree John Sullivan is kind of the weak link on that offensive line. Blythe, I've noticed his play has gone downhill as the season's gone on. Whitworth has surprisingly improved, and I know that's different from last year, and I think that needs to stop the narrative that, the older guys, like, I'm just going to say this, do the research, don't just assume, because last year, people were just like, okay, so like Andrew Whitworth and, the older offensive linemen are breaking down as the season goes on. That's normal. This year they're not, and I still hear people saying that. So, let's crush that narrative. That's not true. He's actually playing at one of his. I think this is the best he's been. This year, I think he's really starting to roll. And watching Roger Saffold, he gets to the second level with ease, very athletic, and he finishes his blocks. And I think when you have guys on the left side of the offensive line like Whitworth and Saffold, regardless of Whitworth, his age, he's extremely athletic. I think people forget that. So I think that's going to be huge as far as moving on to the Rams attacking the Patriots offense. And I say this, I know people would be like defending. To me, this is a game you have to attack. There's no defending. You have to attack Tom Brady. You have to hit the quarterback. He's getting rid of the ball, before the 3-second mark. So it's hard to sack Tom Brady, but you're going to have to pressure him into making poor decisions, which isn't easy. And you can make it a lot easier for Brady if you play soft zone like the Rams have done this year.
All right, so you have to attack, but you cannot blitz. Okay, the Rams have to
Yes.
continue this trend of only blitzing a couple plays, a handful of plays. I think they blitzed six plays in both of the playoff games, 6 and 6. So, you cannot blitz Tom Brady. You cannot sit in zone. Although there is a little bit of history with Wade Phillips playing cover 3 against Tom Brady, and if the interesting thing about this is that I think Aaron Donald, not that I'm concerned, but I think Aaron Donald is set up to fail in this game, because I think a lot of people are thinking, he's the best player on the planet, best defensive player on the planet, expecting him to have, big players, big games, all that stuff. If he has 1 sack in this game, I think that's over the over-under I would place it, because throughout Patriot history, especially, recently, just look at last week against those great Chiefs defensive linemen, Jones and Houston and the outside, the end. Those guys did nothing until the offsides that lost their team the game. Look at the 2 outside rushers for the Chargers, Bosa and Ingram. They did nothing in that game. Historically, J.J. Watt has played the Patriots in the playoffs several times and did nothing. Really the only, big name pass rusher that was able to do anything against Brady recently in the playoffs was Von Miller, and that was because the Patriots didn't have Dante Scarnecchia, the greatest offensive line coach in NFL history, had retired. It didn't, his replacement hadn't really worked out, and so they could only go on one, and Von Miller had timed it up in that 2016 AFC Championship game. Besides that, basically, Brady's able to get the ball out so quickly that it basically nullifies defensive line. For that reason, I think the Rams are going to continue what they've done in the postseason, which the defensive line is going to play run first and then try to rush Brady. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of pass rush in this game for either team, because that's a Patriot weakness. The Pats front 7 is probably the least talented group in this game, positionally. I do think that defensively the Rams have more talent. Certainly there's big names on the outside with Edelman and Gronkowski and that whole group, but I think the Rams have younger, more explosive players. I think it'd be smart if Wade may just say, we're just going to man them up. Right now, don't you think John Johnson can man up Rob Gronkowski? Don't you think Talib and Peters can man up Chris Hogan and Phil Dorsett? The big question is the big matchups, Nickel Roby-Coleman against Julian Edelman. That's going to be one of those matchups that's going to decide the game. So, I do think that, they're just, I think the Rams are in a good place defensively as long as they don't play zone, as long as they don't blitz. I think if they man up and say, our guys can take your guys, they're going to give up some points. There's going to be tons of points in this game, but they can win. They can win the game, make some plays. I think that's, I expect Wade, play man and trust your guys.
Yeah, I think you're going to get to me, I just feel like both teams are going to change what they're doing, at least a little bit, because you can't just go into this game and do exactly what you've been doing all year. For me, attacking the Patriots offense, I totally agree with you. I think they're really just going to sell out to play the run. That's what got them the win against Dallas, and I'm convinced really that's what they did against the Saints. The problem is the Rams, when they get gashed because the other team uses a counter against them. So they use a trap run. So Aaron Donald, by selling out to stop the run, he's not, risking himself over pursuing the play and, missing the ball carrier, which honestly was the case against Ezekiel Elliott to start the game. Now, that's the thing the Cowboys do very well, is they take somebody that's, quick to pursue and say they shoot the gap, and they'll literally it's like closing the door. They'll run right up the middle, and that guy's going to fly right by, and you just tire him out. I mean, they could win that matchup one-on-one all day, but as long as you continue to run a trap play against them, they're not going to stop you. So, really, the Rams have sold out to stop the run. I do think what's going to be surprising, I think the storyline, I'm going to say this right now, that no one is going to expect. The Patriots will not use James White as much as they should.
Oh.
And I think that is going to end up being their crutch. I think, last week, 2 weeks ago, the Rams, when they played Alvin Kamara and the Saints, Alvin Kamara kind of went all over them, and then they started, hitting him early, hitting him behind the line of scrimmage, knocking him off, rerouting him, playing physical and not allowing him to get off the line of scrimmage, and that stopped that whole attack. I feel like Bill is going to kind of look at that and try to win in a different way. You have James White there. Obviously he's going to be used, but I don't think he's going to have 15 catches in this game like people are assuming that.
Well, not 15. They're not playing zone. I mean, I do think, one of my opinions on this game is I don't think there's a linebacker on either side that could defend the opposing team's, running back in coverage. And, I think it's going to be interesting. I think Patriots have some good options, when they have the ball. They use 21 personnel, the second most in the NFL, in the high 30s. Only the Niners, who have HOF, use 21 personnel more. And, I think there's going to be this, the Rams are going to dictate that. If they put Nickel Roby on the field, if they got nickel out there, the Patriots are going to put James Devlin, their fullback, on there to run the ball downhill, right at Nickel Roby Coleman. If they take him off, they put, two inside backers in there, and then the Patriots are going to throw the ball. So, I think it's really interesting how the Patriots have this tell where the vast majority of snaps with Sony Michel on the field are running plays. The vast majority of the snaps James White's on the field are passing plays. And the Patriots, in the past have done everything they can to mask tendencies, to throw tendencies off. And that's as blatant a tendency as you can find. And they just don't care. With this offensive line, it's been probably the best offensive line in football the second half of the year, certainly the last 2 months. These are probably the two, these two and the Saints have been the best offensive lines in football. I think, there's really going to be kind of this personnel grouping cat and mouse, when you see who's on the field, with what the Patriots are going to be doing. It's really interesting. But again, as long as the Rams kind of stay true and believe that their defensive personnel is better than the personnel, even though they're bigger names, everyone knows Edelman and Gronkowski and all those guys, I think the Rams have the better player, the younger, more athletic, kind of more in their prime player across the ball when the Patriots have the ball.
I think that's a really good point. And, I think you can't discount how important it is to wear down an offensive line. And you saw, the New Orleans Saints in the NFC title game, they eventually got worn down. They give up the sack to Sue. Then they give up the sack to Fowler to basically end the game, or the forced interception, basically. So I think that's really the key here. I mean, Super Bowls are won and lost on really what it comes down to. As long as it's a close game, you're talking about 2 to 3 plays. It just takes Aaron Donald one play to get break through and hit Tom Brady. The the Chiefs were able to hit Tom Brady at the end of the game. That was called roughing the passer, but they were able to get there. I do think that will be something to watch, but I'm telling you this right now, Joe. I'm laying down the gauntlet. I think right now, it's going to come down to. We talked about it earlier. You mentioned sometimes like the hero who's going to step up, and I wrote a little piece on 3 guys that I could see being unsung heroes for the Rams in the Super Bowl. And, the first guy I listed was the kick returner, punt returner, JoJo Natson. I know a lot of people don't want to give him an opportunity. Wow. But, I mean, it's simple as this. You go back to, the Denver Broncos Seattle Seahawks game. That was 22-0 at the half. Seahawks got the ball. Denver could have stopped them, and maybe it's 22-0. They get the ball back and they score. Different game. However, Percy Harvin took it all the way back and made it 29-0 right out of the half. Completely took the win out of the Broncos' sails, and that was really the end of the game at that point. If JoJo Natson can break one, he's never done it in the NFL since he's come here because he played with the Jets last year, and now he's with the Rams. But if he were to do that, that would be huge. The other guy I mentioned, Gerald Everett. Gerald is already – and Joe, I hate mentioning Everett because he's a second-round pick, but just the sheer volume that he's used or the lack of volume, it's just – I feel like you can make the argument that he would be an unsung hero, kind of like how he was in the Chiefs game.
Well, if he goes out and kills it – I mean, Everett would be my pick because the J.C. Jackson struggled in the AFC Championship game. I think in these sort of big games, a lot of it comes down to who's your third corner, who's your fourth corner, who's the worst player defensively on the field, how deep can you get into their depth. And I think Gerald Everett wins against some of the lesser coverage guys. I think that's a good call. People will say CJ, but I don't think this is a CJ game. I think it's a Gurley game. I think from the Rams' perspective, offensively, you got to go with either Josh or Gerald. I think an absolutely huge aspect of this game is going to be red zone when the Rams are in the red zone, because we know how spendthrift they've been in the red zone, the troubles that they've had with red zone. Red zone conversions, and the Patriots are an excellent team in the defensive red zone. They're experts at turning 7 into 3 and getting off the field in the short field and kind of rope-a-doping the opponent. I think that those are going to be absolutely key, especially in the first half. It's going to shape the game when the Rams are down there and in position to score. Can they convert? Can somebody like Everett or Reynolds make a play? What type of new stuff are we going to see out of Sean in those scenarios? I mean, I think that could be where this game is won and lost. But yeah, besides that, I don't have, the Rams, have this elite talent. I don't see Aaron Donald having a huge game. I'm going to stick with Gerald. I'm not going to search the rest of the roster to find somebody else. JoJo, anything you get out of JoJo Natson is huge, because I think down the stretch they've just been concerned with making sure he retains possession. In a lot of these big games, the Patriots won't even. They'll just send Edelman back there to fair catch. Back in the day, you'd have Wes Welker back there, and he would just fair catch. You just retain possession. But if JoJo goes out there and gets a big return, I think anything you get out of him is gravy.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. I think my number one, so you're going Everett. I think my unsung hero, I pretty much was setting this up, is John Franklin Myers. Look, this guy's only had 12 snaps in the playoffs. But, the fact of the matter is he did not take long to make a statement that he was going to be a player for this team. He had 2 games where he had over 30 snaps on the season. And in the big game, keep in mind, we didn't know at the time the Vikings weren't going to be a playoff team. Week 4, he comes in, end of the game, gets the strip sack on Kirk Cousins to seal the deal. That was a 2-minute drill, basically, to tie the game up. And the Rams absolutely needed that. They get the production out of him. And to me, this is somebody that's played, relatively well when his number's called. He had a sack in the Chicago game. I believe that was his last sack. And, I just think if you're looking for anybody to make that one play and just kind of be that unsung hero, to me, it's John Franklin Myers. He's athletic enough to get around the edge. They've used him as linebacker. They've used him as a defensive end. They even used him, in the trenches as I think they played him in the one technique as well, which is kind of a little shocking. He's 292 now. He bulked up, but he's a little smaller. But the point is, it just takes, again, like that one big time play where I could see him, it seems like there's at least one play a game where Brady's amazing at getting rid of the ball in an instant, but there's that one play where he holds on to it too long and puts himself at risk. I feel like if that play comes up, don't be surprised if John Franklin Myers bats that ball the other way. I really think that's kind of the thing. That's kind of the theme here. I think you're on the right track with Donald. To me, I look at this game, he's either going to have 4 sacks or he's going to be neutralized, and the Rams are going to have to win in a different way. I think, this is another game for Dante Fowler to kind of, I saw it earlier today on Twitter. I don't know if you saw, or maybe you shared it, that Fowler was talking about a franchise tag, which I thought was kind of interesting. Normally, players don't talk about a franchise tag. They normally talk about getting paid or, like a contract. So he really wants to stay and, maybe, a game-winning, strip sack or a game-sealing strip sack would help his cause, but I do expect him to play well. There's some thing out there. He's played Brady, I don't know how many times, but he has 3 sacks against him. So he's actually been like a thorn in Brady's side. I don't know.
Well, he had 2.
It's one of those funny.
He had 2 in the AFC Championship game last year, so that's most of it.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So then, well, this is also huge for him because he had that. He had the taste of being so close and yet so far. So I guess this is kind of revenge in Dante Fowler's own way. But I just think there's obviously so much we can take away from this, but I think we covered the Rams attacking the Patriots, but with the Patriots overall, how do you expect them to attack the Rams? Because I think when you look at it, I think they could go multiple ways. I think they have a 3-headed monster backfield because I think people forget how good Burkhead was, but yet his touchdown run put them in the Super Bowl. Pretty much that drive he did. And, I think obviously Sony Michel is a 3-touchdown, in a game potential guy. He's done it before. And then you look at, James White. He was integral in winning that, the Atlanta Super Bowl. So, I think when you have 3 guys like that, it makes things a lot easier on the quarterback, regardless of how the game looks. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I went through it with the 21 personnel and the kind of cat and mouse game between, having Nickel Roby on the field and not, taking advantage of the Rams penchant for nickel. I think, I think you bring up a good point in that a lot of people talk about Edelman, and obviously he had a great game in the AFC Championship game. They talk about the big names, Edelman, Gronkowski, Hogan. But to me, the strength of this offense, besides Brady, is the kind of the offensive line with the diversity in the running backs. The having Michelle, on first down, having White on third down, having Burkhead to fresh, and the 3 of them together, it gives them a ton of options offensively, and it gives Josh McDaniels can basically do whatever they want in the screen game, whatever he wants in the run game. Devlin, the short yardage, having a fullback. One thing is Michelle hasn't been very good in short yardage, so Devlin's actually gives them a little bit, in that regard. Devlin can kind of be their CJ Anderson a little bit. They have scored some fullback touchdowns, which you haven't seen in quite some time. In many ways, Belichick, this Patriots team is really more of a throwback to the type of team that beat the Rams the first time around. This team is closer to that first group of champions from 01, 03, 04, than the stuff lately against Seattle and Atlanta last year. This is a little more of a balanced team. I think these are two of the more balanced teams in football.
Would you say this team is better than the Patriots team that beat the Rams? They have the same record, which I found funny.
Pretty close. Probably not. Simply because I think that team developed into the best Patriot team that won a championship was 04. The team that beat the Eagles, that team won 21 straight games and was just a wagon. That team was a legit team. One of the more underrated teams in NFL history, I think, defensively, when you had McGinnis and Bruschi and that whole group. Everyone talks about the 07 team that almost went undefeated. I think the 04 team beats the 07 team like a drum. And I think they've evolved into this offensive juggernaut as Brady went through his prime. But 04 was a really balanced team. There's not too many teams that have come along in the NFL since that have been better than 04 team. The 01 team had some of those defensive qualities and didn't have like the high-end talent. They're kind of a mess offensively with, Troy Brown being their best, offensive weapon with Antoine Smith. They don't. If you look at it now, it doesn't look that great. And obviously, they managed that game defensively. When you've got somebody, they still had some of those pieces like Law and McGinnis and Bruschi, but anyway, I think I picked the 01 team, but because I do think this team, like I said, doesn't have high-end elite talent besides a 41-year-old quarterback or however old Brady is. Really, this team is. This team's pretty over the hill. I think this is maybe their last run. The Rams have a real good opportunity to end this thing this time around. Because Brady's in his 40s, because Gronkowski and McCourty are probably playing their last game. I do think where they have a strength is on the offensive line. But they don't have a ton. Think of defensively, the Patriots have let, some elite talent walk, some first-round picks. Chandler Jones went to Arizona, led the NFL in sacks. They let Jamie Collins, who would be the best athlete on this team, walk to Cleveland. I think there's a big opportunity. I think they got to pay Trey Flowers. There's a really good chance that they don't pay him and he walks, and they're even worse. They made all these moves in the offseason to get picks, and then they've got really nothing out of the front end of their draft this year, because you remember, as you mentioned, Isaiah Wynn, he tore his Achilles. That's the player they drafted with the Brandon Cooks draft pick. They grabbed an offensive, a guard. Tooney's actually played pretty well in that spot, without Wynn. So they'll probably be better on the offensive line next year to match with Michelle and White, and I'm sure Brady will be back, but they have to they may need Josh Gordon to kind of get eligible and get him to play because, Gronkowski will probably be gone. Hogan will be gone. Edelman he'll probably be back, but he's getting older. So it's interesting. The high-end talent of the Patriots, they're kind of receding. They're getting older. And it's just, it's basically, I look at this game, if you want to boil it down in its simplistic form, young talent against, aging experience. It's kind of a classic matchup in that regard.
Yeah, it's also kind of a passing of the torch. You just have to complete the passing.
Could be.
And I think really what it comes down to is, this Patriots team, obviously they're playing to win another, world championship, and that's great. Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls if he wins, but really what it comes down to is I think they're playing more so to keep the band going. And the Rams, they win this game and they kind of, it's different. It just seems like different than last year's Eagles team. It just seems like, the Rams were there last year and it seemed like it wasn't their time yet. It just seemed like they were a year ahead. And now, the glitz and the glamour of LA, and now you're all of a sudden you're starting to see Jared Goff, really turn into his own, and the defense obviously, and Wade Phillips in his 3rd year, being able to fully install his defense and having the right personnel, and still kind of a waiting game there, and then the offensive line, which took a while, but it has arrived in full force. So it's almost as if obviously the Rams. They have the aging talent as well, with Talib and Whitworth and Sullivan. Like, they do have guys like that. But I think it'll be
could be those guys last game. Yeah, this could be the last time you see. It's interesting how, I went through all those Patriot players that could be done after this game. Neither of these teams are going to be the same, next time we see them in OTAs, because Whitworth could retire, Sullivan could retire, Peters, they might I'm sure they'll let, one of Fowler or Sue walk, if not both. This is a shot for both of these teams. And, I think something that needs to be brought up too, I should have brought it up when I was going through the Patriots, is Patriots are looking to be, I might have mentioned this on the last pod, but Patriots are in a position to do something that the last team to do it was the 72 Dolphins. And no, it's not going defeated. It's win the Super Bowl after losing it the previous year. And, they blew, a lot of, as we get further away from last year, people are going to forget, the Patriots lose a Super Bowl in which Tom Brady throws for 500 yards, doesn't throw a pick. Guy was unbelievable. They torched that Eagles defense, and they could not stop him. And, until that play by Brandon Graham at the end. And the reason they lose that game is because Bill Belichick does not play his best corner. So, this is a team that has gone through, a lot of kind of emotional, baggage from last year, throwing away a Super Bowl because Malcolm Butler sat on the sidelines for a reason that's still not public. So, it's really fascinating that it did not kill this team and they were able to keep going, and able to get back here. Meanwhile, the Rams are building in a more organic way where they, end their streak of losing seasons. They get over, or of in their streak without a winning season, I should say, and get the playoffs, have that disappointing game against the Falcons, obviously learning lessons in that process, and then going on and being even better this year. I think they've evolved, and I think these are two teams that are kind of at a crossroads. The Patriot dynasty receding, the potential Ram power. I think I shouldn't use the D word with the Rams until they win a couple times, but I do think this is the potential. There's a really famous. Remember Ricky Prohl? Before they took the field in 01 or in 02, turning the NFL Films camera and says, tonight a dynasty is born. And the irony of that is it was the team they were playing that had the dynasty that began that day. And this is the chance where, with a team that has a Ricky Prohl's son on it, Austin Prohl, I think he's a practice squad guy, right? For the Rams.
Yes.
This could be, the opposite, where this is, the Rams could kind of finally make Ricky Prohl's prophecy come true for them. This could be, it really has the opportunity to be a bookend, to bookend the Patriot dynasty, to begin something special with the Rams. If, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, the Rams going to win this game and then hand Sean McVay a fat contract extension like they should. like they should have last year, like we said. Then Rams fans can really buckle up for, a potential long ride. So anyway, we'll get to all those things later. We get some other things to talk about for Sunday.
Oh, we're loaded. But before we're going to take a quick break, but before we do, just want to bring up really quickly, Joe. I mean, if the Rams were to have a lead similar to the Falcons, the year they lost the Super Bowl, do you think this Rams team holds on, or do you think they suffer kind of the same thing with the Falcons? Because I feel like this is either going to be really close, or the Rams will just kind of shock everyone and come off to like they'll go off to a really good, start, completely different from the Saints game, and kind of hang on, and people, will just be shocked. I mean, how would you see that going? Would they be able to? I mean, they're not a team, and this is one thing I think is great about Sean McVay. They're not a team that really sits on their hands. I mean, this is still a team that'll throw down the field. I don't think they get really conservative like a Ron Rivera coach team.
I mean, I think that's how. Well, you're asking me whether or not the Rams can hold a 28-3 lead in this game. Is that what you're asking me? In the late third quarter? I mean, what happened a couple of years ago was a bolt of lightning that struck that, you can never legislate for. I mean, it's never going to happen again.
Well, let's hope that you're
and I don't think
totally...
if Rams are up by 3 scores. I mean, I don't think you can, if you give Sean McVay a 28-3 lead in the third quarter, he better hang on to that thing. Jared Goff better hang on to that thing. I think they'll be fine. I mean, I'm going to be worried for the Rams if they start to give up pressure up the middle, because I don't think either of these teams are going to be able to generate much pressure on the quarterback. It's one reason why I think there's going to be a lot of yardage and a lot of offense in this game. I think, I think there's going to be a decisive defensive play, whether it's Talib or somebody like McCourty or Trey Flowers. One thing I don't think we went through is how will the Patriots attack the offense. And when I see that, I think, the danger guy to worry about is Trey Flowers. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the NFL. He certainly is the one guy on the Patriots front 7 that's worth a damn. I think he's an elite player that, doesn't really have the reputation to go with it. He's probably the one guy that really belongs up there with, Donald and Gurley and Talib and, the elite kind of non-quarterbacks that the Rams have. I think I'm pretty sure the Patriots are going to stick Stephon Gilmore on Rob Woods and try to interrupt that kind of, put their best cornerback on the player that kind of keeps the chains moving, keeps the, it's the lifeblood of that offense. And I think what they'll do is similar to what you saw the Patriots, how they took, Tyreek Hill only had 1 touch in the entire AFC Championship game. Think of that. Think of the game plan that Bill Belichick had to come up with to take Tyreek Hill out of the AFC Championship game. Dude had 1 touch. So, I think they're going to do something similar with Cooks, where they'll high-low him, put the second corner, have a second corner and a safety on him, and then that's how it'll match up, because I think, the Rams tight ends don't really scare you, so Devin McCourty can be on Higbee, and, I think that's how that kind of lines up. And I just don't think they have anybody that can stay with Gurley. I think that's the big question there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because with Gurley I feel like they used him so much more, out of the passing game last year. The best way to use Gurley is exactly how you saw him against Tennessee, to seal the NFC West title. I mean, that game right there, he had over 250 total yards of offense. I mean, if he has a game like that in the Super Bowl, I don't need to know what the score is. I feel like the Rams already won the game. So, that's a real good point. And you mentioned earlier Belichick kind of hiding, putting out some mixed signals, with the obvious tendencies. Well, the Rams, they kind of hid Gerald Everett, the last 3 games, and they didn't really use him a ton against the Saints until they really needed him, and he was huge. They haven't really used Todd Gurley in the passing game as much as they've used to. And they haven't used Todd Gurley and CJ on the same, at the same time on the same field. Makes you wonder if, those 3 things all kind of explode onto the scene in this one. And I think, if you were to go split back formation, or even if you, flex Todd out wide and had, CJ, I think you put Todd in motion, and you have CJ, behind Goff. That's really going to get people freaking out, because it's, how do you defend that? And in short yardage situation, it's like there's no way they're going to give it to Gurley, but if they do, he's got home run, ability. So I think it's interesting. I mean, if they decide to go that route, jet sweep's been with the Rams since they drafted Tavon Austin. So, I think really they could really do anything here. But I'm glad that you brought up, the tendencies and kind of showing your cards on purpose, because I feel like Sean McVay's kind of doing the same thing.
I think I do want to see, if I'm a Ram fan, I want to see Todd Gurley on the field as much as possible. I want to see him in the slot. I want to see him in the single back. I want to see him, every which way. They got it, you need to play him till he cramps up in this game. And you need to see him eating alive a Landon Roberts or, any of those, nameless, faceless Patriot linebackers who go forward, who can, part of the reason why, who's the linebacker from Denver you meant, or from Detroit that you mentioned, who got picked up?
Van Noy.
So Van Noy flamed out in Detroit because they drafted him, I think, as a first-round pick. They drafted him as a 2-way back or a 3-day. And he was great going forward, but he couldn't go back. He couldn't cover. And so, if they play Roberts and Van Noy together, they don't have backers on the field who can cover. And that's what Kansas City figured out. They figured it out too late. But, they made Damian Williams look like Kareem Hunt in the AFC Championship game. Now, what's Todd Gurley going to make that look like if it's Todd Gurley? I think the big question for Rams fans, and I think they should be fine, but you're really not going to – I think the biggest exhale that a Ram fan can have on Sunday night is that first catch and run that Gurley has, that he catches it, he feels good, he makes moves, he gains a first down, and gets moving. It gets going, gains some confidence. You don't want to see that first pass go through his hands. You don't want to see him give up something in pass coverage and compound the feeling from two weeks ago in New Orleans. Because I do believe that he's healthy. I just think he had a bad day and kind of, the emotion of the moment kind of compounded on him, and he just kind of, fell through a hole emotionally. So, I think this is obviously an opportunity for him to bounce back and kick some butt, and I think it's right there for him against, what they're going up against. I think that at some point in this game, he might be killing them so much, the Patriots might have to bring up a safety to take him out of the backfield.
Yeah, and then now you're talking, I mean, if you put, say, like Harmon or McCourty.
It'd be McCourty, yeah. It'd be Devin.
I think, and there you go. Now you can kind of, now you open up. Now, maybe Belichick is going to plan for Brandon Cooks, or maybe he's so convinced, they traded Brandon Cooks for a reason. He knows Brandon Cooks. He's not really, he's more scared by the guy that can move the chains, like you said, in Robert Woods. Or, I don't know how that's going to work, but say, they plan on having a deep safety back there to stop, the deep ball going to Brandon Cooks. Now, all of a sudden, you're playing complementary football just with your offense, because you're setting the Patriots up where we're going to keep gashing you with the screen game if you don't come up and try to stop it. And then you come up and try to stop it. It's kind of like pick your poison, because now all of a sudden Brandon Cooks can kind of, go down the field. And I feel like, it really just takes that one play. He gets a free release and boom. He's got game-breaking speed, obviously. So, obviously we'll see with that. But we're going to get into our comparisons or check boxes, whatever you want to call the next segment, Joe. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. What's up, guys? If you're looking for a pre- or post-game spot downtown, Tom's Urban is the place to be. It's a jump shot from Staples Center and right in the mix of it all. And we are throwing a Super Bowl parties of all Super Bowl parties. Listen close, because this isn't a joke. $100, and it's actually going to be $80 when you mention Downtown Rams, is going to get you all you can drink and eat. Select wines include Moscow Mules, Urban Margaritas, Backyard Lemonades, Jerry's Mai Tai, and all draft beers. Buffet and open bar is available from 2 p.m. until the end of the third quarter of the Super Bowl. Go to tomsurban.com/Los Angeles promotion /big-game-bash/ and sign up now. Limited spots available. Buy now. Tickets will be more expensive at the door. 100 plus, tax and gratuity. You will not find a better deal out there. Also, just so you know, Monday through Friday from 2 to 5 p.m., anything that pours is half off. Plus, from 10 p.m. to close Sunday through Thursday, you can get the same deal. So we better see you this weekend to cheer on our Rams this Super Bowl Sunday. All right, guys. I am joined here by Anthony Munoz, Hall of Fame offensive tackle, arguably the greatest offensive tackle of all time. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. It's good to be with you. How you doing today?
Great. Very great. So, so really quickly, I just wanted to touch on, the whole Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Week, which recognizes NFL's toughest offensive lines who are in the trenches every game, making sure work gets done, just like Ford trucks. The Ford F-Series trucks, F-150 Super Duty, Raptor, and new Ford Ranger are the official trucks of the NFL, and of course, Super Bowl 53. The NFL is preparing to recognize the Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Year at the NFL Honors on the eve of the Super Bowl 53. And the 5 nominees that are in the running, obviously only one can win. One of them, of course, is the Los Angeles Rams, and this is, of course, Rams podcast. They're playing in Super Bowl 53. One of them is the Indianapolis Colts, who were an emerging young playoff contender, kind of came out of the gutter of 1-5. The New England Patriots, of course, that are playing in Super Bowl 53 and haven't allowed a sack in the playoffs so far. The New Orleans Saints, who made the NFC title game, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles, who got going at the end of the year and got to the playoffs. So, what's your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be involved with this Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Week. It's my third year that I've been able to talk about it, and it's fun for me because every 3 weeks I get a chance to go on national radio in a lot of different markets and talk about all the teams. And as you mentioned, the Rams, Colts, Patriots, Saints, and Eagles are the final 5, and the winner will be announced at the Honors Show Saturday night, the night before the Super Bowl. And of course, it's fun because 2 of the offensive lines that are finalists are playing in the game Sunday. So, it's pretty cool that Ford is, so many times you give individual accolades, and of course, MVPs, quarterbacks, running backs, defensive linemen, and a lot of times offensive linemen, get some individual accolades. But the fun thing for me is being able to, really recognize the entire offensive line through the Built Ford Offensive Line of the Week. So I think it's pretty cool that we get a chance to not only, recognize them, but the 5 lines that we talked about, we were able to watch them also in the playoffs. And of course, the Rams. are one of them. They won it twice during the week, 2 weeks during the season they were selected. The Patriots were selected. Of course, the Colts were selected 3-time winners. Of course, they ended up losing. And then the Saints 2-time winners. So there's some pretty good offensive line there with some pretty good, not only as a unit, but good individuals too.
Yes, without a doubt. I think offensive line means the world in today's league. I mean, when when you become a passing league, regardless if you're trying to run the ball or throw it down the field at will, you're definitely going to need some protection. We've seen Jared Goff under pressure, his stats under pressure, and we've seen Jared Goff with his stats not pressured at all. So obviously it's made a huge deal. And in this Super Bowl, one of the biggest keys is the left tackle position. I think you really have to look at the two left tackles that are in this game. Trent Brown, who the Patriots traded for from the 49ers, and Andrew Whitworth of the Los Angeles Rams. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Well, first of all, it's interesting the comment you made about throwing the ball around. The thing that's still, people say the game is so much different. I say, well, it's different, but it's also the same, because you look at the teams that are winning. You look at these two teams in the Super Bowl. I mean, the Rams and the Patriots. Sure, they throw the football. Goff and Brady can throw the football, for 4,000 or 5,000 yards a season, but they also can run the football. Their offensive linemen are very effective running the football, as the Rams proved against the Cowboys, and the Patriots have done that. So, and I'm a little biased to the left tackle, of course, especially to the Rams left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, because I've known him for so long. And at 37, he's still playing at a top level. I mean, he's still one of the top handful of tackles in the league. So it's great to have a guy like Sullivan at center, and then Whitworth to tackle some veteran players, and then you got Trent Brown, as you mentioned, getting traded over, and he was a right tackle. Now he's playing left tackle and playing it effectively. I mean, that whole offensive line for the Patriots have done an amazing job not allowing Brady to be sacked during the playoffs. So, like I said, I'm a little biased to the left tackles. I know one of them, and the other one's playing pretty well. But I think both these offensive lines are pretty good. And you have to also look at the Rams line. I mean, they've been able, all five guys have been able to play together all season and not missing time as a unit. So that's big. I mean, that's huge for the cohesiveness and, continuity that they have as an offensive line. But, I look for, both offensive lines are going to have some pretty good challenges, come Sunday. So both excellent offensive line and both finalists in our Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Week.
Yeah, of course. And, obviously, looking at your career, I mean, you started 182 games. And, you mentioned, obviously, that these guys are able to stay healthy, and that's really, the continuity on the offensive line, that can't be understated. How did you manage to start so many games and stay healthy throughout the course of your career? Do you just, what's the secret? Do you guys end up just playing through injuries and you're just kind of like, it's a minor injury to us, which would be a major injury to, an everyday person? How does something like that work?
Well, sometimes you do. I mean, for the most part, you don't want to play when you're hurt and you're going to hurt the team. I mean, you have to play through some bumps and bruises. You have to play sometimes when, physically, you're not at 100%. That's just kind of the nature of the game. But, so I was fortunate. I feel I was blessed to be able to play that many games. And, I think a lot of it has to do with just, your intensity, the speed that you play the game, your conditioning. I think the better conditioned you are, the harder you can go. And I think the injury risk is lowered by that. So I think there's a lot of different factors that come into play, for that. So I was fortunate that I got to play that long, and not miss a whole lot.
Yeah, of course. And you were in 2 Super Bowls. And really, we're talking about, obviously, this is right before the Super Bowl. Is there any advice that you could give to, any of these players that, just because you've had the experience that a lot of the guys, mainly the Rams, have not?
Well, I would just say, because I played in my first one, my second year, and, it wasn't that, second year in the league, we're going to the Super Bowl. I think the main thing is just focusing on what's gotten you there. I mean, the preparation, the detail, attention to details, and really taking care of what's allowed you to get to the Super Bowl, and not letting, you have a lot of distractions during the season. You kind of block those out and do the same thing, in the 2 weeks of preparing for the Super Bowl, especially when you're in the Super Bowl cities. You really got to hone in on and focus. And that's what I would say. Not only focus and do what's got, but enjoy it. Take it all in. I mean, it's got to be an enjoyable experience. And I learned that from one. I played in one my second year, then one in my 10th year. And I really believe that I took a lot more in my second one than I did my first one. But that's what I would say to these guys that are playing in the game is, just do and prepare the way you have all season, and then just, really take it all in, enjoy it.
Yeah, and, the Rams have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. And, in the past, they've had Roger Saffold on this roster for a while. They've had some guys that have really just translated over the years, have really developed. How important would you say is the offensive line coach position on that coaching staff?
I think it's very important. I think all assistants are very important because those are the guys that are really developing the guys to get out and play. And I was fortunate again to have the same offensive line coach for my entire career. I had one line coach for 13 years, which is extremely rare. And I think it's, once you get set into the way he's teaching you things, the confidence you have in the technique he's teaching, and then with that confidence going out every Sunday and using that technique. So I think it's huge when you get an offensive line coach that is capable of really teaching you solid fundamentals and technique as an offensive lineman.
Without a doubt. And lastly, Anthony, I don't want to put you totally on the spot, but how do you see this game this Sunday going?
I think it should be a pretty good game. People are talking about, Patriots being an underdog, which I don't buy. I think the one thing is, they have so many guys that have played in this game, and the Rams haven't. So I think that might be an advantage. I think it's a good matchup. I think, we've been talking about the offensive lines. I think the defensive fronts for both teams are solid. It's not like, one side or the other should have a clear-cut advantage. I think it's going to be a battle for both offense and defensive lines. And then it's going to come down to execution and turnover. So I think it's a pretty good matchup.
I hear you there. I think we lucked out, and being a Rams fan and all, I'm really happy we were able to get that revenge game. Now you just got to complete it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, great. This is excellent. I appreciate you having me on. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Hey, this has been a total honor. And I love what you're doing with Ford Tough Series, and obviously I respect you a ton. I do think you're the best offensive tackle of all time, by the way. I just
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And,
absolutely.
Wish you the best this weekend. All right.
All right. Sounds good. You take care.
Okay, Doug. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye, Anthony.
Hi, this is Dexter McCleon here on the weekend before Super Bowl 53 to talk about the Patriots and the Rams. Very excited. I think we have two evenly matched teams across the board playing for the world title this coming Sunday. The keys to the game for the Rams are going to be to get pressure. The Rams defense, let me start there. The keys for the Rams defense is, first of all, you got to get pressure on Tom Brady. I think Brady has gone through the first two preseason games without being sacked, and he's led an offense that's averaging 39 points a game right now, and, they played their best football that they played all year. So the key for the Rams on defense is to get some penetration, to get some pressure with the front four, and see if you can get pressure with only four. They have a two-headed monster in the backfield, and Sony Michel and James White, which they've done a great job in the postseason. Michel running the football and White catching the football out of the backfield. That's going to be another key. Basically stopping the short dump-off passes to James White and Edelman, and them making plays after the catch. Another thing's going to be, the Rams secondary's got to play well, especially on the inside. Nikhil Roby-Coleman, he'll have a huge challenge of guarding Julian Edelman. Their chain mover is what I call him. He loves to work the insides on a lot of option routes on third downs to give Tom Brady short, easy, quick throws, which he's great after the catch. And also, you can't fall asleep on those guys on the outside. They have guys that have stepped up and made plays in the playoffs, and Dorsett and Hogan, to name a few. And let's switch over to the, I think the keys for the Rams defense is going to be, we gotta work that two-headed monster in Gurley and CJ, big CJ Anderson. I think the key is going to be you got to be able to run the ball to get them to kind of load the box a little bit. I think bring an extra man or two in the box to stop the run, and that way it'll open up the pass for Goff. I think our receivers are going to have to win one-on-one matchups because the Patriots secondary is going to play a lot of bump and run, man-to-man coverage because that's what they do. They're going to challenge you. Guys have got to win on the outside. I think they did a great job of that against New Orleans a week or two ago, winning on the outside. So it's going to be another challenge for them this coming week. And another thing on offense we have to do is Jared Goff has to do a great job in the play action game and hit quick throws. I think to try to minimize that pressure of that New England's going to bring. And let's flip it over. I think overall, I think the team that is able to run the football the best and the team that's able to stop the run and play man-to-man on the outside will have the better chance of winning this football game. I think it's going to come down to the little small things. Always in the Super Bowl, most of the times it comes down to like one or two plays that determines the outcome of the game. To be interesting, I think this game is very evenly matched across the board. Like I said, the only advantage I see the Patriots having is the experience of number 12 at quarterback versus number 16 for the Rams. That's the only advantage I give them. Otherwise, I think it's pretty evenly matched. I look forward to a great game. I look forward to seeing how the Rams defense performs against a very good Patriots offensive line that's been playing very well of late. And we all know Aaron Donald's going to get double teamed. So guys like Sue and Fowler and Brockers have to play well. They got to win one-on-one matchups, which they have been doing well in the playoffs. It's going to be a good one Sunday. Like I said, I'm expecting it to be a close game. I'm expecting it to come down to maybe a field goal like it always is. I look for the Patriots to win. I'm sorry, let me take that back. Can't believe that came out of my mouth. I look for the Rams to win it 30-27. I think it'll come down to the last possession and a field goal. Jared Goff will lead us down the field. The running game, CJ and Gurley, they'll do their thing, and I think we'll get in position to be able to win it with Greg the Leg. The Rams win it 30-27.
Okay, I lied. So we didn't take a quick break. We actually had, obviously, that deal that I mentioned earlier. You guys definitely have to check that out. We also had Anthony Munoz on the podcast. Great interview. He's known Andrew Whitworth a very long time, so he's very excited for him. Talking about the Built Ford Tough Series Offensive Line of the Year, and that'll be announced NFL Honors. And Joe, before we dip into the next segment, who would be your prediction for NFL Honors?
Is Andrew Whitworth going to win the Peyton Man of the Year award?
No, I think that went to Kyle Rudolph.
Oh, it's already been decided? Because Whitworth won the NFLPA award.
Oh.
Okay, let me Google that real quick. I saw that today, and I was like, is he going to win the Man of the Year award? But what type of prediction are we talking about? Certainly somebody else will win. But the bottom line, somebody else is going to win Coach of the Year. Somebody else is going to win MVP. Somebody else is going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Aaron Donald will win Defensive Player of the Year again. But then, none of those things matter because the only thing that matters is a Ram wins, Super Bowl MVP on Sunday.
Kind of sheds some light on last year. It's great to have those accolades, but if you don't take the next step, does it really matter? So that's interesting. Also, because I talked about that, and Anthony Munoz was awesome. Like I really hope you guys enjoy that because that was an honor to have the Hall of Famer on here, and who I think is the greatest offensive tackle of all time. Really cool. I know I teased that that you guys wouldn't be able to guess it, and it is a Rams podcast, so there's probably no way you guessed it besides Joe, who I told. And then Dexter McCleon. He is a friend of the podcast. He's been on before. And
Super Bowl champ, right? Yeah, you're right. Rudolph won it. Oh, that's disappointing. I thought, considering everything he did with the fires and everything that in the shooting, I thought Whitworth had a good shot at that. But he'll take that other award and deserve it. And once again, as long as he's touching the Lombardi on Sunday, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that's not an award I'm about to say someone doesn't deserve.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I will say this, because I was gonna talk a little bit about Dexter McCleon, but I'll say this, guys: if you get a chance to check out Kyle Rudolph and what he did, the video that NFL Network posted was, honestly, it's tear jerking. So you definitely should check that out because, man, I respect Kyle Rudolph a ton more after watching that. Big children's hospital guy, set up this end zone at the children's hospital for kids to basically, the different kid patients to have this area to play all sorts of games and stuff. And he was, he's really done an amazing job, with his community. So it couldn't go to, it could go to somebody who's just as deserving, but man, I saw that. I don't know if you saw the video, Joe, but he deserved it. I was very impressed with Kyle Rudolph. But
cool. Good job by him.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, guys, I just really have to thank Dexter for taking the time. He put together a quick little audio clip. Just wanted to get his thoughts on the game. Obviously, these guys are very busy. So I really appreciate him, sitting down and recording that. And his prediction and my prediction are the same. Now, I'm not going to say it now. In case you skipped, shame on you. But, I'm not going to say my prediction now. We did end up with the same exact score, which I found very crazy. But, yeah, so that was a lot of fun. We got, Rams Super Bowl 36 starting cornerback, and we got the best offensive tackle of all time. I'd say it's a pretty good podcast, Joe. Not to mention, how long, we've talked about Rams-Patriots. This was the game. If you were looking for a Super Bowl where you needed something with storylines and, just so many different angles, this is kind of the game that can go in 100 different ways. It's really exciting. I know a lot of Super Bowls do, but now the comparisons. You have Jared Goff, obviously the youngest quarterback in Super Bowl history, versus Tom Brady, who is
the oldest.
Is he now the oldest?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty crazy. Who do you think has a better game?
I'm not going against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, dude. I don't care if he's 50. I do think that we say this every week. Jared's performance is going to be, a pivotal performance. Part of the reason the Rams are here is because Jared, showed his toughness, showed his grit, showed his ability to deliver in New Orleans. So, maybe I shouldn't be going against Jared either. But if you make me pick, I'm going to go with the guy who threw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl last year. But I do think that Jared can play well enough to make this thing a draw.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I'm already picking the Rams to win the Super Bowl, so I have that coming into the year. So I can't go against Tom Brady twice. I'm gonna pick Tom Brady in this one. I just feel like he's, last year I thought he really outdid himself. He broke every all the top three, of the records in the Super Bowl, the performances, all held by Kurt Warner. I think that's
what he
just
did last year in a losing effort. Insane. He should have won MVP.
I actually made that argument. I was like, you know what? I know Nick Foles is probably going to end up winning it, but Tom Brady played well enough where he could be the first Super Bowl MVP, that lost the game. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm picking Tom Brady. As far as better game, I'm thinking more efficient. I think Goff may have more of the splash plays, but I think when you have a guy that can move the chains as much as Tom Brady can, as consistently, you're talking about, because his release, Joe, you're talking about him completely taking out, basically canceling out the Rams' best player in Aaron Donald, canceling out Ndamukong Suh, because of his release, how quickly he gets the ball out. Jared Goff has a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. So I think you have to give the edge to Brady in this one. Obviously, experience too.
I do want to correct one thing you just said. Brady wouldn't have been the first losing player to win Super Bowl MVP. Dallas linebacker Chuck Howley won it when they lost in '71, the year before. When they lost to Baltimore, year before, we were talking about the '72 Dolphins. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, so sorry for the diversion, but yeah, it's
no, that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure. That's why I said it kind of like unsure. Like, am I right in this one? But yeah, I'm going Tom Brady over Jared Goff. That does not mean Tom Brady gets the dub. I do believe Jared Goff still has a good game, but I think, Tom Brady is going to have to play his best, and he knows that, and playoff Brady's different than regular season Brady, so I would go Tom Brady. But then, the next one, Joe, TG and CJ, obviously Todd Gurley and CJ Anderson, versus Sony Michel and James White. Who has a better game out of those duos?
I think you said Sony. Oh, the backs. Well, Gurley. If I'm saying Gurley's going to be MVP, I'll go Gurley. Certainly, I think that if you combine them, you got a shot. That I would rate him Gurley 1, then the two Patriot backs, and then CJ 4. So I think that's how it'll kind of shake out. But I'll go Gurley's. The most important player in this game, who's not a quarterback. So I'll go with him. I'll go with the Rams side there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with TG and CJ as well. I think Sony and James White could have big games. Like I said, I do think that the underrated storyline is going to be how Bill Belichick didn't use James White as much as everyone expected. So because I think that, I'm going to go Todd Gurley, who I believe is going to have a monster game, and I believe CJ is going to have a pretty good game as well. I do think Sony Michel has a better game than CJ, but I think I'm definitely going to go with Todd Gurley to carry CJ and him over the top. Now, the next one is fun because you're obviously on paper, Edelman, Gronk, and Hogan. I mean, Edelman is one of the best slot receivers in the game. Hogan's not really considered a household name, maybe like he should be. And Gronkowski is arguably the greatest tight end of all time. They kind of jump off the page, but Robert Woods has really come on to the national scene. I think people are starting to realize how great he is. Brandon Cooks, I think everyone knows who Brandon Cooks is. I mean, he's a popular player and he's dynamic. And then Josh Reynolds has had his moments, but Josh Reynolds is also has good moments. And he was kind of big on, a couple of the playoff drives this year. So, Joe, who do you think out of the trios, Edelman, Gronk, and Hogan versus, Woods, Cooks, and J-Ray, who do you think has the better game?
Yeah, I had this as a push because you put Gronk in there. You had three receivers on the Rams side, and then you threw Gronk in there with the two Patriot receivers. So if it was just receivers, I would go Rams. But putting Gronk in there, I think makes it a push. So I think that's so might be a cop out. I got a couple pushes on this. So I have two pushes of these, but this one's the one that I really couldn't make a decision on. I think it's pretty even.
Yeah, I think it's really even. Because I think obviously Hogan isn't as big of a name as the guys that are on this list, but Hogan's still, efficient. He's fast, and he's got a big frame to him. So, I think that, you saw it last week or 2 weeks ago. I keep saying last week. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's fine.
Against the Saints. Ted Ginn, somebody who barely played all year because of an injury, he comes back and makes arguably the most important catch of the season for the Saints. Now, I know they didn't win, but that put them in position to even have the call. So, that catch did not come from Michael Thomas, didn't come from Alvin Kamara. It came from Ted Ginn. So I think...
Don't remind me of LaMarcus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do you want LaMarcus? I think Rams fans would literally... they would just... I know from experience, I would say this, they would just turn to stone if they saw Tom Brady at the end of the game tossing one up to put them in field goal range to win the game to Chris Hogan, and you're looking at nobody near him until, there's a late arriving joiner, over there. That would be terrifying.
Brady doesn't really look for Hogan that much, but that's certainly a possibility.
Oh God, I wonder if I didn't speak it into existence.
I wonder if Brady could actually reach him at this point. Brady rarely throws the ball over 10 yards down the field at this point, but he may not have the arm strength left to be able to take advantage of Joyner. Joyner is a weak spot that, certainly the way he's played the last month, you got to bring up that, he's somebody that really should kind of give Rams fans something to worry about. But, we'll see how he bounces back. But that was an absolutely, could have been a game-ending, season-ending play by Joyner. He absolutely has to break that up. And, that's...
you don't need an interception, but at least knock it down. That was
brutal,
third down.
Brutal.
So, okay, so we have, for me, I have Brady, I have TJ and CJ, and I have a push as well as you. So, bigger X factor, Gerald Everett or Rex Burkhead?
Yes, this is definitely Everett. Burkhead, I think, is just a depth guy at this point because he's got a little bit of Sony and he's a little bit of White. I think they ride White in this game, so definitely Everett. If one of those guys is gonna make an impact, it's gonna be Gerald.
Yeah, I would say Gerald as well. Again, I think that the Rams kind of been holding him back, kind of waiting to unleash him. And I would say not just this season or in the short term, I think just in the long term. I think really they want to wait till he's fully, ready to take over as the guy. And I think, once that's when you're going to see, year 3 in Sean McVay's offense, year 3 for Gerald Everett. I think, that could be huge. But I have Gerald Everett. I think, obviously he going back to college. When he was at, South Alabama, he led the whole FBS and the FCS, I believe. He generated the most missed tackles. So he's great with the ball. He gets in space. He obviously is big enough to run guys over, run through arm tackles, has good balance. But, you saw he's fast enough to get over the top. You saw it against the Chiefs. He's scary. I think Patriots fans will definitely have to remember that name. But next, since we both picked Everett, Rams offensive line versus Patriots offensive line, because I find myself leaning towards the Patriots offensive line. No matter how good the Rams are, I still have kind of those visions of the Eagles and Bears game. Whereas the Patriots, I'm kind of just used to seeing them just, whoop some butt up front. So is that fair? I don't know, but I kind of would lean Patriots here.
Well, I think is as good as they've played in the playoffs. They've only given up a handful of pressures, both of them in the playoffs. I think both quarterbacks have been hit just twice. And actually, the Rams offensive line has yet to give up a quarterback hit in the playoffs because both of those were on Gurley in the Saints game. I'm leaning Patriots, but I think both of these offensive lines deserve a lot of credit for where they've been, how they've gotten the teams here. And I think what needs to be said is that Dante Scarnecchia, best offensive line coach in the NFL. How about the job Aaron Kromer has done? Getting right up there, rarefied air with Dante. I think the two of them deserve a lot of credit, a lot of buzz, and probably some raises with the Patriots got we talk about potential players that are leaving. Patriots got the best news of Super Bowl week when Scarnecchia said he was going to be back for yet another season. He's somebody who's almost as important to this franchise as Belichick. And I think you could argue, we go through when we talk about NFL head coaches and people getting interviews, beyond McVay, who would be the biggest loss to this coaching staff if they lost? Would it be, you could put Phillips, if I gave you Phillips, Cromer, and Aubrey Pleasant, would that be the three? Who would be the third? Who's the fourth most important coach in this team? So one of those three, who would be the biggest loss if you had to protect one of those three? Say, the Packers come in and Matt LaFleur wants to hire Rams offensive staff or Rams, assistant coaches, and you could protect one of them. Would you protect Cromer, Wade, or Pleasant?
Wow, that's tough. I would actually protect Cromer.
Yeah,
and the reason I feel kind of shell shocked, being a Rams fan, seeing the days of Alex Barron and Jason Smith and I'm sorry I'm bringing back all these bad memories, Rams fans, but I mean that I'm sure you feel the same way. I mean, when you have a guy that comes in the building and changes everything about the position that he coaches, you don't know what life is, with him. And now you do know what life is without him. So, I think Cromer's kind of, he's kind of the focal point here. And that's the craziest thing. I know, you've said it before, defensive Sean McVay and Aubrey Pleasant, and he gets a ton of buzz from his players. I mean, even like Kayvon has told me multiple times, I mean, he's the real deal. He relates with his players more than anybody, and they all love him, and he's a fantastic coach, and he's kind of got that, elevated attitude that Sean McVay has, and, it would suck, obviously, to lose him, and Wade. I do think Wade somewhat gets underrated here because I'm kind of like pushing him out the door, but, really, it's the fact that...
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I think it's the fact that, I do think, as mean as it is to say, I do think another guy could come in and be the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think this defense is the best in the National Football League. So I do think the Rams' offensive line they did something, and that happened when Cromer came over. And look, Andrew Whitworth has meant a lot to this offensive line, but, Austin Blythe, that is right there. That's all you need to know. Austin Blythe. And go, look at Rob Havenstein before and after Cromer. I mean, development is obvious. So letting a guy like that go could really shoot yourself in the foot. And I think the Bills, saw that because they had, Chantrell Henderson actually looked like, a decent-looking player. Ryan Groy. And, they had guys like that, and now all of a sudden, what's going on? I don't even think Chantrell Henderson's with the Bills anymore. And Cordy Glenn, who they traded away to the Bengals. I think that's crazy. So, yeah, I think offensive line, it's really the key in this day and age. It's been the key no matter what kind of football you play. And it starts with the offensive line coach. And we're really starting to see... Scarnecchia and Cromer, I mean, I don't think anybody that knows football and knows how much position coach means to the game, I don't think any of them would let, a offensive line coach leave like that.
Yeah, let's move on. I think you did. I think we handled that.
Yeah. You threw me, in the gauntlet, and I thought I did a good job, but... All right, so next, Donald Sue Brockers versus Flowers, Guy, and Adrian Clipboard, who's really not getting a lot of attention, but has actually been really underrated and really productive. So who would you say ends up having the better game?
Yeah, this is the biggest runaway I think of any of these. Rams defensive front, elite, best defensive player in the game. Kind of a aging superstar who's having a renaissance in the playoffs ensue. Michael Brockers has not had a great year, but certainly he can lock down defense a little bit and make it so all three of them are strong. Obviously, Trey Flowers is he's the second best player of this group. He's not a Donald, but he's certainly an elite defensive lineman. Guy's an underrated guy. Adrian Claiborne, I think, may not even dress for this game. He made an absolute monster mistake in the AFC Championship game and got benched. Let me see if I can quickly figure out who's going to play there. But between you and me, because I know the Patriots, I think he may not dress in this game. Who the heck?
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's the right move? I mean, I do think he's been good for them.
He was brought in to to really give them kind of some pass rushing depth, and I don't think he's really done it. Because the thing about it is, Danny Shelton got brought in. He's been he's been kind of a bust. Oh, you know what? He's probably going to dress now because Malcolm Brown just got hurt. So Malcolm Brown's hurt. Adam Butler's another name there, but it's really it's Trey Flowers and a bunch of just bunch of like average dudes. I mean, Lawrence Guy's an okay guy, but like the rest of them. Or Derek Rivers. So it's either going to be Derek Rivers, who's a pass rusher, or Adrian Claiborne. That's the question. Although I think there's an opportunity there. But yeah, so that shows you that's a weak link on the Patriots front. Really the main guy the Patriots have to worry about, or the Rams have to worry about up front, is Trey Flowers, and everything else that that he's going to be the guy who's going to provide pressure. If they don't, if they figure out a way to block Trey Flowers, Jared Goff's going to have all day. Looking at the hurry stats in the playoffs for the Patriots, Dante Hightower's got 11. Trey Flowers has 6. Adam Butler's got to be the other guy that's going to play there. Adam Butler, Van Noy, Simon. Claiborne does have 4 hurries. And then it's a bunch of dudes with 1. Those mostly blitzing, I think. But yeah, I think
Claiborne's got 32 hurries and 4 sacks.
Yeah, but look at it just from a playoffs perspective. Let me give you.
True.
I'm trying to find his snap count numbers in the playoffs. Yeah, see, he only had 18 snap counts, and he got benched in the Kansas City game. He had 48 against the Chargers. I almost called them the Clippers, and 18 against the Chiefs.
LAC.
So yeah, look out for that. I do think actually the injury to Malcolm Butler might open a way for Claiborne to dress, but I do think we may not see a lot of him. They may go with Derek Rivers, who's kind of a smaller speed rusher, or you can
Youngstown State.
Yeah, and then Adam Butler, who's kind of a bigger D tackle, hold the run kind of guy. But yeah, that may be the worst spot on the third lineman. May be the worst spot on the Patriots defense, and it's an absolute blowout. You take Rams all day in that matchup.
Yeah. The second leading sacker this year for the Patriots was Kyle Van Noy?
Yeah, like I said, he can go forward great. He's a pass rusher, but he can't go backward, and that's why he didn't work out in Detroit, and that's why he's not going to be, you catch him in coverage on Gurley. Gurley will eat him up all day.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there. I thought it was pretty crazy. I was going through Pro Football Focus, and Lawrence Guy was the second highest rated Patriot at a 90 elite grade.
Yeah, so there's people who experts who really like Lawrence Guy. He's kind of there.
You got him from Baltimore.
Yeah, and off the that's when that defensive line for Baltimore was so good they had to cut somebody good, and the Patriots scooped him up a couple years ago. There's been times he's been in the doghouse, but he's been one of their better players defensively down the stretch.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
I know.
So Donald, Sue, and Brockers are taken because I'm taking them as well.
Oh, but yeah, it's a blow. Like I said, it's a blowout. That's who I'm taking. Let's move on.
Littleton and Barron versus Hightower and Van Noy.
Oh boy. I actually take Hightower and Van Noy because of experience. Hightower is an elite player whose body is no longer there. Van Noy is a talent who, flamed out previously, like we talked about, who's been put in positions to succeed by Bill Belichick. He's actually been playing at a borderline all-pro level now that they're although I think Corey Littleton can kind of surprise you in this game, I go with the Patriot linebackers there.
I'm going to go...
Yeah, come on.
This is tough.
Go the other way.
I'm going to go with the Rams. I'm going to go with the Rams. And the reason is Barron. Because I think, obviously I think Littleton can kind of, play his role and play it well. He has games that are better than others. But I think Barron has really come on towards the end of the year. I think you're seeing that. And I think, it just takes one of those hit stick type of plays to, you put that forced fumble on the stat sheet and you put it next to, 4 tackles or whatever. I think you could see a big play or two out of Barron. I'm going to say Barron carries the load and Littleton, Barron have a better game.
All right.
Next one, bigger X factor, Franklin Myers or Landon Roberts?
I'm going to go neither. Because I don't think... Well, I think if I have to pick one, it's Franklin Myers, but I don't expect either of these guys to have a big impact in this game. Landon Roberts is a run stuffer. I don't think the Rams are going to be, he's somebody who could meet C.J. Anderson in a hole on a third down. But, just another guy who would be out there for Todd Gurley to torch in the pass game. And, Law Firm has kind of been, he had a great start to the year. He's sparkled in some spots, but he hasn't done much. I'm trying to remember last time he made a play. Obviously, the only real thing he did in the playoffs was when he got burned when they were out of, when they got caught by Kamara there. Not really his fault, but.
Yeah, that was a broken play.
Yeah.
Why don't we switch?
I'm gonna go neither. Oh yeah.
Why don't we?
Go ahead.
We'll switch Roberts out for what's his face? The kid from Youngstown you just mentioned.
Oh, Rivers. Yeah, he may not.
Yeah, Derek Rivers.
He may not play. I think they're probably some. Rivers is probably the Franklin Myers of of the Patriots. He may not even dress. I guess you're at some point indoors in heat, you're going to have some depth on the defensive line. And I guess that would be Franklin Myers for the Rams, and that would probably be Rivers or Butler for the Patriots. All right, I'll go your boy Law Firm there. But again, I don't think either of those guys. The X factor, in this game, the D lines are going to be stopping the run. They're going to be bypassing the pass game, and the defensive X factor. Let me give you, it's going to be like the third. The defensive X factor could be Troy Hill, could be J.C. Jackson. The guy who's going to make
Sam Shields
playing in another Super Bowl. I think that's where you're going to get that player in this game in coverage. In a pass-heavy game, if they're able to make an adjustment and find somebody who can guard a running back in coverage,
I guess Ibukam as well would have an.
I like Sam. Yeah, no, I think Samson can definitely make a game. Samson can be. I don't know about underrated. Samson could be. He may be too good to be in this category, but Samson could be the guy who wins you the game like he did against Kansas City. I mean, I think he definitely when the elite guys are getting are being game planned. Samson's got to win. Fowler's got to win. The Patriots know Fowler. They're probably game planning to chip him. They're working out. Ebukam's got to win. I think that's a good call.
I agree.
He could be a game winner for the Rams.
Talib Peters, NRC versus Stephon Gilmore. I said McCourty, but I would probably put J.C. Jackson and Jonathan Jones.
I mean, this is the game right here. I mean, this is, whoever covers better is going to win this game. And you got to like Talib, when you line these guys up, it's interesting. Probably the most trustworthy guy of this group is Gilmore. Gilmore's probably the highest rated corner by PF.
Yeah, but it's not close.
PFF in this group, right? But I think he's probably the best player this year. But Talib is probably the guy you'd rather have in this spot. Peters is the X factor who could really go out and make you a play. He hasn't really done that for the Rams very much. But
Peters could have the Ty Law effect.
I mean, remember now, when you get a pick six, that increases your ability to, your odds of winning a game by threefold. So, I think that this is an opportunity for Marcus Peters. Put it this way, right? Rams fans, right now, what grade do you give Marcus Peters, considering what you expected out of him, what he gave you?
A D plus.
Would you say a D?
Yes, D plus.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be at least a C, if not lower, right? Well, he can go out there and make a pick six, do first game. If he goes out and gets you a pick six in this game, all is forgiven, and maybe a penny.
Yeah.
Because I think the Rams have kind of managed him this week. They've kept him away from the media a little bit. He wasn't at the podium on opening night, even though he's the most entertaining interview in the roster. And this is his chance to make some money. It's a guy who has probably cost himself money with his play this year for the Rams. But if he goes out and makes a play in the Super Bowl, maybe he fixes that.
All right, now John Johnson III and Joyner versus Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung. Who has a better game?
I wish we had Chung versus Roby Coleman, because of, the fact that they're both guys who've given the other team bulletin board material. And I think both teams are probably game planning a double move or something to try to beat both those guys. The fact that Joyner's in there makes me lean Patriots, because certainly he's been just, all over the place in the playoffs. He's been a liability. But I do it's funny when you ask me these things, there's a Ram player I would put first and then a Ram player I would put last every time. And the Patriots, think of that, right? You're talking, this is a theme we've had all night, where you've had the Rams have the elite players, but the Patriots have the depth. They don't have the elite players, but they don't have holes. And so I would pick, if I was going to rank those guys, I think John is going to sit on Gronk. I think he's going to take Gronk out of the game. I think if the Patriots get one or two plays out of Rob Gronkowski, I think they'll be happy. I think John's got a chance to really lock him up. But I also think Joyner's going to be the liability. Joyner could be the guy that they target and really make some money. There's always, in these games, there's always the one player that Belichick and Brady lock in on and just eat alive. Last year it was the third corner for the Eagles. This year it could be Joyner, especially the way he's played recently. So, so it's hard for me to make a determination when I'm ranking them 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what I'm saying? 1, 4, 1, 4, 2, 3. So maybe that's a push, but so you understand my reasoning there.
Yeah, no, I do. I'll go. I'll go Rams, mainly because JJ. I just think, when you talk about a guy that I thought they had a great game plan for stopping Zach Ertz, against the Eagles, and I thought he was huge in that regard. Obviously they had a hard time, stopping guys like Jared Cook earlier in the year, but they fixed, at least it looks so far like they've kind of fixed how to, really guard tight ends, and they've really just been putting John on whoever the tight end is. So, I think they should go man up him with Gronkowski, and I do think he's going to have a huge game and shut Gronk down. Maybe he doesn't get an interception or anything like that, but, if you don't hear your name called, you might be doing something well.
Yeah, you would take that.
Yeah, I would. So now we've come to the end of this podcast, so we have our predictions, and we'll wrap this thing up. And any stat predictions that come to mind, anything you want to throw out there in case it happens, and then you're like, I was the guy that said that on the Downtown Rams podcast. That I don't
know about a stat. There's one thing I've left out because I think we haven't got to it yet. Is I do think one potential X factor is I do think the Rams have an enormous advantage on special teams. I think you got a shot of Hecker or Zerline. Obviously two of the best doing it there. Allen, the Patriots punter, is a very good punter. It's not a huge advantage for Hecker, but the Gostkowski, the Patriots kicker, tends to kind of yank one in a big spot, so he could miss a PAT. He's got a track record of missing in big. This is a guy who
he missed it in the Super Bowl against the Falcons.
Yeah, when it was 28-3, Patriots scored a touchdown, and they lose momentum there when he misses the PAT, so it's 28-9. So I think that's a big advantage. I think definitely Bones, I'm sure, is dialing up something in case they need it. A decent chance for my boy Troy Hill to make a special teams play. We've seen that. He already made a big stop in the Cowboys kickoff return. Or somebody like Sam Shields, like we saw in New Orleans on the reception. I just think, and the Patriots normally with Bill Belichick, a special teams coach, it's obviously a huge part of his plan. This has probably been one of his worst teams on special teams, so it's been an issue for the Patriots. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. The Rams have a huge advantage all over the place in special teams in this game. In terms of predictions, I'm going to say both quarterbacks will turn the ball over at least once. I'll say Aaron Donald will not have a sack.
Wow.
Doesn't necessarily. I just think it's going to be hard for Aaron in this matchup. And I will say Robert Woods will score. I'm going to say Todd Gurley's going to score 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
I just pulled that out of my butt, but I believe it.
By the way, going back to Hecker, since Bill Belichick is not going to get fooled by a fake punt. If the Rams were to do a fake punt, you know what I would do? I just thought of this. I think it'd be perfect. So you have I think it's John Kelly, right? He's the extra protector.
Oh, really?
It's John Kelly, right?
Right.
Who comes in as the extra guy right in front of Hecker?
The personal protector? That's a great freaking question. Let me call that up as we go forward. I'll get you that answer.
See, because that...
I don't know the answer to that.
Because you can't obviously switch them out in this game. You kind of tip your hand.
Because then you would know, yeah.
But you know what I'd love, Joe? Is they do a fake punt knowing Bill Belichick is going to know that, he's going to stop it, right? So, Hecker, pump fakes, tries, acts like he's going to go deep like he did earlier in the year. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then he does a shovel pass to the protector. And And then all of a sudden, because you have those guys kind of in man coverage, all of a sudden he gets a crease, gets the first down or a touchdown or whatever they however far this guy takes it. But I feel like if Hecker were to do that, I feel like it would work. The shovel pass. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Look at you dialing up plays. I like it. I think that's pretty cool.
I think it'd be cool. A direct snap, as scary as that can be, because I mean, if you screw that up, it's man, Jake McQuaid. If he were to, can you imagine that if they did a direct snap to the protector?
Oh, this is interesting. I should have known this answer. This is interesting. Personal protector for the first punt in New Orleans was Blake Countess.
Ooh, and there we go.
And that opens up everything because Blake Countess is hurt.
So the Rams could literally trot out like a running back out there, or say Daryl Hodge, and then you do the shuffle pass. See, Joe, this is gonna happen.
He's the personal protector on the fake punt. Let me see. When did he get hurt?
I don't know if he's going to play, but...
Well, that's what I'm saying, was there a point during this game... Let me find the last Rams punt. Because what I'm saying is, was there a point in this game where he got hurt and then he was replaced as personal protector? Nope, he's out there. He's out there on the last punt, too.
Just a late injury?
I don't know who the backup personal protector is. That's such a good call. He's the last punt. He was out there for every... Okay, let me keep going. I'm going to try to pull up... Can I
see, Joe? See? This is interesting.
This is why you listen to the Downtown Ram podcast, because we go deep on backup personal protector.
Oh my god. No, but I'm serious though. Like, I mean, I know it sounds kind of funny, but like, I feel, I mean, they could have done it with Blake Countess, but with him being out, now John Kelly opens the door for him. Daryl Hodge. I mean, you'd hate to kind of take away Sam Shields as a gunner, but you could do Sam Shields. So they have opportunities for, if they need 2 yards or whatever, a shovel pass. I mean, I really like that idea. And I like it because you're beating Belichick at his own game. Like, he planned it. He knew you were going to do it. He had you beat, and then you do the shovel pass. Because the thing is, like, I think when he played, when the Rams played the Packers, I don't know if you saw that game, the one where Hecker actually, they totally beat him, right? They knew the Rams were fake punting it, and Hecker rolled out like a quarterback and threw a dime over everyone's head to Cody Davis. Like, touching everything.
Oh.
So, I mean, if
So, the personal protector in the Niner game, John Kelly. It's there. John Kelly's the backup personal protector. You are a freaking genius.
So,
if he dresses,
the
problem is he may not dress. The problem is he may not dress. All right, dude. If this happens, you should figure out a way to bet this. The odds on that, John Kelly converting a 4th down on a shovel pass on a punt. I'm sure you could get good odds on it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's ballsy to do this in the Super Bowl, because this isn't like, I have trust in my defense. This is like, if you don't get this, little things snowball in the Super Bowl. This could be like the death sentence. But I mean, if they need it, I don't know. And like I've said, people don't remember, but Johnny Hecker can make something happen when the play breaks down. I saw it against the Packers. Rolling out. He actually had pressure. Guy almost sacked him. And I mean, he threw it like there was touch and all, and he threw it over everybody and got it to Cody Davis with accuracy. So Just because it looks like he, is a statue in the pocket doesn't mean little Johnny Hecker can't do anything. And plus, if it totally breaks down, he can do one of those running punts that they have in college. So,
Amazing.
Yeah, we're talking so much about fake punts, and this probably might not even end up happening. But hey,
Let's make our predictions. All right, cool.
All right, so you got your stat stuff and all that. I'm gonna go. Let's see. I'm gonna go Gurley. 200 total yards. Goff throws for 250 and 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I'll say, I'm calling it John Franklin Myers has a strip sack. And I'm going to say interception goes to Marcus Peters. And that's all I can really predict. I mean, there's not a ton to go on. But Super Bowl MVP, Joe, take it away.
Well, this is basically you have to pick the score first, right? Because it's determined by who wins. Obviously, if the Patriots win the game, Tom Brady's probably going to be MVP. And I've already told you that if the Rams win the game, Todd Gurley's going to be MVP. So I'm going to pick the New England Patriots 31-28, which means Tom Brady's my MVP.
All right, so I'm picking the Rams, just like Dexter McCleon did, 30-27. So
somebody on here, we couldn't be all Rams across the board. Somebody had to.
Joe, what is with us having such close scores?
Well, it's the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a one-score game. So.
No, I mean our score.
Oh, what was yours? Yours was 31-24?
No, 30-27.
Okay, well, it was basically freaking identical.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, but I think we always, even when we're picking, even when we're picking different winners, we, come up with something similar. So a lot of we're in the same mind a lot.
Yeah, the only time I think we were totally off was the Lions game. I kept saying won't be a blowout. You thought it'd be a blowout, and then they ended up actually having to really fight for the win at the end. But what was I gonna say? So yeah, I mean, I think like Dexter mentioned earlier in the show, I think it does come down to Greg the Leg, and I do think he comes through with the game winning kick.
That would be poetry. How poetic would that be? 17
I
years
do
later.
disagree with Tony Romo. I don't think the team with the ball last is going to lose. Because he said that. He has 28-24, and he didn't pick a team. Because he can't, because he's the announcer, and you don't want to get into all that. Well, Tony Romo, it's all rigged and everything, because I was talking to Charles Davis about this, where you can't really you can't make a prediction. It's one of those cardinal rules that you can't do when you're calling the game. But that's it. So you have 31-28. Patriots prevail for the second time over the Rams in the Super Bowl, and I have 30-27. Sean McVay in 2 years brings Lombardi to LA. So, Joe, I think that's it. You have any parting thoughts?
I just want to wish all Rams fans around the world good luck, and I hope it's a memorable day for you guys on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. Probably not going to be. It's not gonna be easy to watch that. I can imagine a lot of people are going to be nervous. I don't know if I could be any more nervous than I was when I saw Greg Zuerlein's kick kind of hook right and then come back right over the goalpost against these Saints. I mean, I've never felt so. I don't know. That was heart wrenching, but hey, the Rams did it. They got to the Super Bowl. Now they just have to to complete the process. They punched their ticket. Now they have to, hold up the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the night and, kind of show the rest of the league that they're for real. Obviously, they've kind of done that, but show the rest of the league that they're here to stay. And, Sean McVay, you think the head coaching, stuff with McVay and all the hiring is crazy now. Wait till he has a ring on his finger. But that's it, guys. This has been episode 153 of the Downtown Rams podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate, once again, Anthony Munoz for taking some time to come on the show, as well as Dexter McCleon, and, of course, my buddy Joe Curley, as always. So, thanks again, guys. It's been an amazing season, regardless of what happens. We'll be here after the Super Bowl to give you your post-Super Bowl podcast, and hopefully it'll be a Rams Super Bowl win. So, you guys take care, enjoy the game, and I'll be around. Later.